So we've been exploring core, fundamental Invader tactics. And in this podcast, I want to now start exploring some of the specific tactics, the abilities of the various survivors in the game. And we're going to focus in this vlog on the core survivors in the Invader set. Then we'll push our way out to the various expansions and then move into the Kickstarter survivors, some of the different combinations, some of the things to keep in mind as you build out your survivor party. Now, no doubt the primary tool to influence in Zombicide Invader, being a miniature game, being a Zombicide game, is the ability to remove zombies, or in this case, aliens, Xenos, from the table. We do this through weapons, either ranged weapons or close combat weapons, essentially trying to generate a large dice pool, being able to roll 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 dice. At the same time, having those dice score a hit, lower number better. 4s are one thing, 3s, 2s are even better, causing multiple wounds, and then finally looking to push out either through abilities or through gear, the ability to manipulate dice, essentially re-roll dice or manipulate your misses on there. That's going to allow you to chew through the Xenos as they spawn. However, doing this, there's a lot of what-ifs in the game. Searching is very, very important. At the beginning of the game, and this is modified a little bit after the first and second spawn, searching is very important. Being able to get that initial gear, getting a good mix of shooting gear from when you're inside, close combat gear for when you're outside, and hopefully along the way some experimental gear to hold you over on there. That's going to build your dice pool. But each character also has some starting abilities that are vital in doing this and in manipulating the Xenos in ways that aren't necessarily removing them from the table. So we're going to start first with looking at Jared, and I was going to say Ripley, but Vivian on there. These two survivors have the ability to shove in the case of Jared or taunt in the case of Vivian. This is going to allow you free actions after the Xenos. Well, I guess they're zombies. After they've spawned and they've activated and it's your turn, this is now going to allow you to influence their movement either by pushing them away, shoving them away, opening up ways to escape when you're overwhelmed, or possibly to push them out of the way to now begin used range work, or taunt the opposite to potentially pull them towards you and bring them a free move into range. And this is big. Just consider being one space away. And at the beginning, the lower threat levels, you have 3 activations. To swing in close combat, especially if you're outside, especially if you're on the surface of the planet, you're going to burn an action point to move forward, and then at best you're going to have 2 attacks to dish out. Through taunting or through shoving, depending on the location, you're going to push these into a zone. Now you have 3 actions on there. So the ability to manipulate is absolutely massive. These two survivors, 100% crowd control. Now we have Cole. And Cole is really, really interesting. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite base survivors. Being a civilian, very squishy, of course, only 2 life points. And this is, on a side note, this is some interesting tactica, a break away from the previous Zombicide games. If we look at Zombicide Black Plague, all the survivors have 3 life. There's a couple of abilities that might push it a little higher, but essentially everyone's playing at the same starting health location. Invader's completely different. The soldiers generally have higher life, or in the case of Magnus, which we're going to explore, massive amounts of life, and the civilians only have 2 life points. This means maybe they can take 1 hit. I mean, you never want to take a hit in Invader. Maybe they can take 1 hit, although you have to be really careful if some hunters, those are the fast-moving Xenos, if they spawn in the mold, or you're close to a spawn zone and they activate, they could hit you with 2 attacks on there, especially if they get an extra activation. So the civilians, you really have to watch out for. So Cole, Vivian, And Mitsuki, we need to keep that absolutely in mind. Now back to the tactics. Cole at his core has the ability for free search. Combine the fact that he's not limited to searching just in the armories because he's not a soldier means until you hit the surface, until you grab those oxygen canisters and hit the surface, you're getting a free search every turn. That's going to allow him to move through the gear. That's going to allow him to potentially vital gear that he finds pass on to the other heroes, survivors in the game. And when he finds that flame canister or energy canisters by burning through, to pass that on. So it's just kind of this loot mining that he gets really, really well. And since it's a free action, you can be in a room, you can kind of chain search. You can be in a room, because at the beginning of the game, everyone's pretty much going to search, move, or move a little bit and search. Cole is going to be able to search the room he's in, activate a point and move. Now you're in another room, and keep kind of pushing through there. That's really, really big with it, to kind of get that free action, to keep him moving, to even when you start moving along, when things start spawning and you'd like to search but you can't because you don't want to expend those points, those action points, getting it free is really, really big. So this moves us then into Magnus. I love the name Magnus on there. He's essentially the brute. You know, every game has to have the brute. He's the tank. He has, whether it's based on the armor, whether it's based on being jacked up, I don't know. He has the highest amount of life points, 6 points, in the core set. There are some Kickstarter exclusives. There are some differences in the expansions. But if you're just playing core and you're working your way through that campaign, that narrative, he has the most lasting power. If it's possible, again, I don't want to take those hits, but spawns make things happen. You can put the hits on him. He's kind of like a shield, a living shield on there. You want to try and position him to transfer those hits so they don't go on the civilians. If you need to kind of trail a hero behind, a survivor behind, you can do it with him if he gets bogged down a little bit. There's also times where, based on positioning, usually you see this, not so much with tanks, the tank Xenos, but definitely with the hunter spawns. When they spawn in mold, now you kind of like, okay, if I move in, I might only get 2 attacks on them, or if I shoot, I'm going to get a number of attacks. Normally what you want to do is shoot an attack and keep moving. But sometimes, based on how fast things play out and move, you might have to expend all your actions to attack, whether it's close combat or to shoot. What this means is if the dice go against you, even if you have leveling up the threat, you got another action, if the dice don't quite play out, then you're kind of exposed. You know, a perfect example would be I attack a bunch of hunters, I take them out, but there's one left. No one else can get to take that out. Now it's going to activate one, move into my space, activate again, and deal damage to me. Magnus can take it. He's kind of your shield for the survivor, for the group. Baraka. She has the interesting ability with that luck to manipulate the dice, to get that dice manipulation on that reroll. This is huge with experimental weapons, because experimental weapons in the deck and in the missions, they take a little while to acquire, and then of course you have to have the correct energy cells, ammunition, or pieces to make them work on here. So you tend to get them a little bit later in the game, which means to catch up, especially as the Xenos threat levels rise, you need to be hitting every time. You need to be utilizing that. And she has that kind of built-in mechanism at the base level, the core level, to do that. The last survivor. And she's my favorite. I mean, I really like Cole, but Mitsuki has the ability to access bots. Now, this is a new piece of the game. Bots and sentry turrets. We explored. I pushed that up to my Invader archive the other day. It's up there with the board games. But this is important because these are things that you can operate, either a stationary gun target or the bot, and have it move along, that give you additional attacks per activation. They work as another survivor character in the party. And what's vital is not only does it give you a huge boost of firepower early on in the game with a fixed stat, you can lose the turret or you can lose the bot, and it does not count towards mission goals. It will not automatically end the game like losing a survivor on there. So this opens up massive, massive amounts of tactics on there. As just some additional dock of dice to throw down, it opens up some tactics to potentially add some weight, both as firepower or in the assault, close combat, if you need that. It offers a way to have a delaying action. Now, normally you want the bot to move along with you for free, rather than burning your action points if you're playing Mitsuki or another in the Kickstarter like Dr. What, controlling things there. But otherwise, you can kind of leave the bot where it is. You can break it away. You can do that delaying action. And it takes a hit. It dies. It is easy to kill. But again, not going against those mission parameters of losing a survivor. Huge. So her ability to do that is big. The challenge here, the challenge I find with playing her and utilizing her abilities is you're a civilian, so you've only got 2 life points on there. She's not going to be searching as much because for the most part she's going to be utilizing the bot. Early on it's getting the bot into position or getting it with your group. So at the very least she's going to be like bot, move on there. But you can have Cole pass her some gear. You can have some others pass some gear on there. But the big thing is responding to spawns, especially mold spawns that tend to pop up in the oddest places and have tanks and hunters appear in there or mass spawns of workers. Occasionally it's like 1 or 2 workers. You can deal with that. But these mass spawns that really pop up really fast, you want to use the bot to help put them down. So this means she's spending less action points. Even when you move to the next threat level and she gets that experience on there, if she levels up, you're still mid and end game burning points to activate the bot. You have to be really careful. She does not get left behind. Almost like where you're going early on to be very, very aggressive. And then in terms of moving out, so then mid and end game, at least she's in a good position. But it's a trade-off. It's not a weakness. It's just something to keep in mind and try to plan ahead. So we're going to try and get as big a dice pool as possible. We're going to try and collect as much loot and as much gear as possible. But more so than any of the other Zombicide games. And I love Zombicide Modern. I love Zombicide Black Plague. More so than ever, these starting skills are vital. It's almost like they've hardwired them into the game. They are so vital to be able to win the missions, especially after you make it out of the tutorial. It just kind of assumes that you're aware of them and you know how to utilize them. And the first couple of plays is being aware with those core survivors. They have these, they use these. You definitely need these.